My dear city trainees, you are welcome back to my class, and you will be extremely happy to learn that we are going to discuss a fresh lesson entitled Education at the State Level, the Role of State Level Agencies of Education. Uh, Dear students, as you know, primarily the business of the state was confined to law and order and physical security, right? The state was expected to protect its man's freedoms to act as he chooses, provided he doesn't infringe upon the freedom of others. But welfare state has some additional functions to perform, like looking after the education, laying of roads, facilitating development of agriculture, industry, in addition to law and order of protective functions of the state. Now, let us have some idea about the administrative structure of education in the country at the state level. The central government is an advisory and coordinating authority so far as the educational role is concerned. The constitutional provision reveals that central government is expected to play a very significant role in the field of education. Although the centralized system of educational administration has many advantages, so there is very danger of regions being overlooked. It hampers the development of small groups. The point is that the greater the decentralization of administration, the better, the quicker is the development of individual, right? So there should be neither complete decentralization nor the centralization of the educational administration. So therefore, a harmonious balance must be maintained between these two. But now, the present administrative setup is being decentralized, and for the purpose, in order to keep a balance, there is delegation of responsibilities and powers from the center to the state in order to bring equality of educational opportunity. The administrative machinery is sole responsible for the spread of education. There is no uniform pattern of administration of education at the state level in the country because the country has a number of states and union territories. The structure is again varies among different states. So usually there are three different structures dealing with the education structure at the state level. So this include the secretariat level, directorate level, as well as inspectorate level. Though education is included in the concurrent list in the Constitution of India, it is primarily the responsibility of the state governments headed by the Minister of Education, and every state has the state Department of Education and function through the offices of the department like the Commissioner of Education, the Education Secretary and the Director of Education, other agencies like universities and other statutory bodies. Important stakeholders or agencies of education at the state level are listed as State Department of Education, State Council of Education Research and Training, State Institute of Educational Management and Training, State Institute of Educational Technology, and State Higher Education Commissions. So these are the different stakeholders, I mean the different agencies of education that are working at the state level in different states across the country. Well, my dear friends, one of the important agencies of education that work at the level of states in the country is State Board of Education. Uh, there are a number of state education boards in the country. So these are recognized by the Department of Higher Education, and some of the states have more than one school education board. These boards conduct various types of examinations which vary from state to state, but most of them conduct middle standard examination, senior secondary examination, senior secondary, open school matriculation examination or matriculation open school in Seoul. So these have been created to serve the education needs of the people at the state level. So therefore, state boards certification valued less as compared to the all India level boards. Another important agency of education that work at the state level is, of course, State Council of Educational Research and Training. In short, is known as SCERTs. So SCERTs in the country came into existence on 5th January 1979 to begin with, as a result of the transformation and upgradation of the former State Institute of Education SIEs. These SCRTs has a number of functions. Let me read out one by one. Number one function is to organize and implement the special educational projects sponsored by UNICEF, NCRT, and other agencies for qualitative improvement of school education and teacher educators. Second, to prescribe curricula and the textbooks for the school and the teacher training institutions. Third, to produce instructional materials for the use of teacher educators. Fourth, to arrange in-service training for different categories of teachers, inspecting officers, and teacher educators, and coordinate the work of other agencies operating at the state level. Fifth important function of ACRTs is to organize programs including correspondence and contact courses for professional development of teachers, teacher educators, and inspecting officers. Six, to supervise the working of the teacher training colleges, secondary training schools, and the elementary training schools. Seven, function is to provide extension services to teacher training institutions at all levels in the state. Number eight, to conduct studies and investigations on various problems of education. Ninth, to evaluate the adult and non-formal education programs entrusted by the government from time to time. And lastly, function number 10 is to conduct the public examinations, especially at terminal stages like the end of class 3 and 4, etc., with a view to selecting candidates for scholarships through such examinations. So in order to carry out the different functions of SCRT smoothly, uh, this organization has some 12 different departments. This includes Department of Preschool and Elementary Education, Department of Non-Formal Education, Department of Curriculum Research and the Special Curriculum Renewal Projects, Department of Science and Mathematics Education, Department of Population Education, Department of Teacher and In-Service Education, Department of Educational Technology, Department of Examination Reforms and Guidance, Department of Research Coordination, Department of Arts and Aesthetic Education, Department of Adult Education and Education for Weaker Sections, and Department of Publications. So these are the 12 different departments categorized for smooth functioning of SCRTs across the country. My dear students, State Institute of Educational Technology also play a very important role in the areas of education at the state levels. So let me explain the important role played by State Institute of Educational Technology. Uh, these types of institutions is an agency of education has been established in 6 different states across the country. These states include Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Orissa, and Uttar Pradesh. In order to implement the INSAT for educational project effectively, These institutes are functioning under the administrative control of the State Council for Educational Research and Training in some states and under the Directorate of Education in other states. The Ministry of Human Resource Development, now called Ministry of Education, renders financial assistance to such state institute of educational technologies. Uh, and side by side, the State Council for Education Research and Training (SCERTs) are mainly expected to implement the educational technology projects utilizing all kinds of modern media, methods, and materials. So now let me bring before you some important information regarding the ongoing activities of the State Institute of Educational Technology. This include production of educational media material for both television and the radio transmission through Doordarshan and All India Radio. Next is to conduct workshop and training program for persons involved in the use of media materials. Third, to take up evaluation and research on materials produced by the institute. Next is monitoring, utilizing of ETV and ER transmission. Next is conversion of a video program into CDs and supply to schools. Uh, Next is production of audio programs for SSA for classes 1 to 7 for schools, now known as Sabagra Shiksha. And finally, production of IMLOs for class 9 and 10 standard funded by MSRD, now Ministry of Education, Government of India. Uh, Another equally important state level agency of education is nothing but State Institute of Educational Management, Administration and Training. So in short, it is known as SIEMAT. So SIEMAT is, after all, a state level autonomous institution, and the main objective of the institute is to impart training and conduct researches in the areas of educational planning and management. It also aims to establish education networking with institutes at the national as well as international level. Now, the question is, why do we need SIEMAT in today's education scenario? Yes, let me try to give answer to this question. Decentralization of education planning and management is a major concern in the country today. Translation of the idea of decentralization into an operational practice requires creation of necessary organizational arrangements to make the practice administratively feasible and professionally supportive. So these are some of the important, existing arrangements that have been made in different states and the union territories across the country. Uh, in some states, SIEMAT has been considered as a separate institute at the state level. In some states, SIEMAT has been considered as a department in the State Council of Education, Research and Training (SCERT). SIEMAT somewhere in some state it is considered as a part of the state project office. In some other state, it is considered as a cell working under the Directorate of School Education, and it is also considered as a part of the State Institute of Public Administration. So these arrangements depends upon the organizational structure and nature of the different state governments. But among the agencies of education, State Department of Education play the most important role, and let me try to bring before you the important roles and the responsibilities played by the State Department of Education. First role is the establishment and the maintenance of educational institutions. Second, to grant recognition of institutions established. Third, to provide grants to schools managed by private governing bodies. Fourth, to pass laws for various types of education. Fifth, to supervise schools through DEOs and the supervisors at the district and the sub-district level. 6. To recruit and place teachers in schools. 7. To prescribe syllabus and the supply textbooks. 8. To establish school boards to conduct examinations. 9. To provide special assistance to poor and backward students. Number 10. To organize training programs for teachers and supervisors. 11. To initiate action against teachers and the schools in case of any lapses. Lastly, to feed information about the schools to the centers. State Department of Education again control the activities of universities. In every state, government finances the university or universities and sees that proper standard of education and instructions are maintained in all branches. It also sees that there is a coordination between the university and the state education department. It nominates its own representative allied to the Senate or legislative body of the university's functioning, etc. Recommends appointments made and looks to the general well-being of the universities. State Department of Education also uh, play an important role in improving the quality of adult and social education. I should say more than 75% of our people are yet illiterate. This that government also looks to the needs of those adults who have had no schooling in their childhood, and hence it is the responsibility of the state to make all these illiterate adults fit for democracy. And for this purpose, the state maintains a well-organized program of adult and social education. And side by side is that Department of Education is also responsible for opening training institutions across the state. The state also opens training schools and the colleges for providing trained and efficient staff to educational institutions. These training institutions admit matriculates for basic and elementary schools and the graduates for high and higher secondary schools. Duration of training may range from 1 year to 2 years, and arrangements are also made for the training of arts, crafts, and technical instructors, recently slate inspectors and headmaster for elementary schools. State Department of Education is also responsible for the framing of curriculum and the syllabus. Well, the state prescribes syllabus and the course of study for various school classes and the grades. The length of his course is determined, and sometimes even the time schedule is prescribed, and the working days, working hours, and the vacations, all these things are specified. Textbooks are prescribed or got prepared. Some states have nationalized textbooks, and some have nationalized partially. Rules and regulations for admission, withdrawal, and migration, all these things are framed by the state so that there is coordination and uniformity in all educational institutions functioning in the state. I should say it is the duty and responsibility of the State Department of Education to appoint supervisory staffs. The state appoints supervisors, inspectors, and education officers for regulating the activities of various institutions. The supervisory staff is responsible not only for maintaining uniformity of standards in their respective jurisdiction, but also to see that state aids and grants are not misused by private and other agencies. It is again the responsibility of the State Department of Education to give financial aids to educational institutions. The state recognizes schools and other institutions run by private bodies, persons, or local bodies in accordance with set rules and regulations. It also provides them with suitable aids and grants to run efficiently and effectively. Financial aid is also given to universities functioning in the state. Uh, and side by side, It is the duty of the State Department of Education to appoint commissions and committees from time to time with an objective to improve the quality of education in states. The state also appoints commissions and committees from time to time to discuss the various aspects of education and educational activities in the state. These committees of experts suggest ways and means for a further improvement of education in various fields. And uh, lastly, State Department of Education holds examinations of various types. Some states hold public examinations at various levels, and some states that do not hold examinations give directions to the examining bodies like school boards and the district educational authorities that conduct elementary school examinations at the district level. Teacher training examinations at the school level, like junior basic training of secondary school level, the LT, are also held by some states. The state education departments also award certificates to teachers who have undergone special orientation courses at various institutions like Institute of English, State Institutes of Education, etc., and recommend persons of distinction in the educational field for state award or national award. So, with this, let me say thank you for attending to this lesson. Thank you very much once again.